All right. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We really appreciate you spending your evening with us. And of course, this is the first of our monthly webinars for 2025. So we're excited to talk just a little bit about True Function. In January, we like to kind of bring it back to True Function and go over kind of our plans for the year and really tailor it to our clients and our prospective clients, and just kind of give you an update of the plans for 2025 before we get into the educational webinars that we continue to do throughout the year. So we host those webinars monthly, and as you know, they cover all things sleep and TMJ, as well as practice growth in these areas. So if there's any specific topic that you'd like us to cover, please don't hesitate to put that in the chat box or message me directly, and I'm happy to get that on our radar for one of our presentations for 2025. The best way to view the webinar today is in speaker view. So in the upper right-hand corner, there's a view button on your window, and you can select speaker view, and that'll give you a nice side-by-side of Frank and the PowerPoint today. So your camera is off and you are muted for the webinar. That is normal. There's nothing wrong with your Zoom. So if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand and I can unmute you and you can ask Frank questions, or you can also utilize that question and answer box and I can ask Frank those questions for you. So today, like I mentioned, we're going to be discussing True Function and our all digital in 2025 plan. So really exciting things coming up. So Frank will go a little bit into your workflow with digital, as well as True Function's plans for those digital processes. Live attendees, of course, you'll be receiving a promo code at the end as always, so stick around. We'll review that promo code at the end. And I'll pass it over to Frank now to share a little bit about himself and True Function, and then we'll get started on the webinar.
Awesome. Thank you, Trish. Everyone, thank you for joining us. We appreciate you spending your evening with us. Hopefully you're staying a little warm today. I know it's chilly out there. Alrighty, so all digital in 2025, that's one of our big goals. Over the years, as a laboratory, we've continued to evolve from the manual process, the art of doing lab work, to a digital process, which makes life a little bit more predictable. Comes with some challenges, but we've made some good progress and can't wait to share where we are. All right, so a little bit about True Function. We are located in La Mesa, California, which is about a 20-minute drive east of downtown San Diego. In the image there, of course, is our wonderful team, and then behind the team is the San Diego Bay. It's kind of hard to tell. It's around, I think, winter time there, and but it was beautiful evening and hard to complain with San Diego weather in the winter. Again, we started in 1999, so we're on our 26th year now, and all we do are oral devices for treating sleep apnea, obstructive sleep apnea, TMJ splints and occlusal guards. And of course, again, the topic of the day, we are evolving more and more into digital. And a little bit about me, long story short, I started as an assistant. I used to be an RDA. And so clinically, I got to work with clinicians in offices, and I got the opportunity to deliver all types of restorations and dentures and splints and sleep devices. So, I got to experience firsthand what some of the challenges were with working with laboratories. I got to do a lot of adjustments, occlusal relines, repairs and all that fun stuff. So it really gave me a good concept of what the expectations are and were from the clinical side, and certainly helps me to understand and to share with my team the importance of doing our job as well as possible, and supporting you with some of the challenges that you face clinically. And I love cars, so a couple on the top there is my California Special. It's a 68 Mustang. It's a beautiful car. It was in the process of being restored, and now it looks a little bit different, but it's a beautiful car. So about the true function experience, our goal is to take care of you and your patient. We want to make sure that we make the products well. We do the best job possible to save you chair time, and we do that by teaching our technicians. I spend a lot of my time personally training technicians. We also, of course, provide a lot of technical support to our clinicians through from the technical component, and also we have wonderful people like Dr. Mayur Patel who support us in giving clinical guidance to the clinicians we work with. Of course, you deal with real people, so when you call, when you email, when you communicate, we still have real people on the phone. We still have real people interacting with you and being there to support you. And we offer the one of the fastest turnaround times in the market. And part of that reason is we fabricate everything here in the U.S. So you don't have to worry about any delays with customs or any of those headaches that come with that. We take care of everything here in-house. So for today's discussion, we're going to talk a little bit about best practices for working with your laboratory with True Function, a little bit about the digital process, and then, of course, what's happening with True Function and digital in 2025. Okay, so the digital workflow, again, from the clinician standpoint, it's the upper segment with the blue lettering. Uh, Basically, it's how you work with us. So connecting with us through your scanning system. Of course, scan your case, submit through the DDX portal. We'll talk a little bit more about that portal, which really makes your life easier. And then how we fabricate the devices, and then your delivery. Um, should be real straightforward. It typically is, and we're here to support you with the whole process, the workflow. And I'll be touching on these points along the way throughout the presentation. So working with True Function, whether you're a new customer or an existing customer, it's the beginning of the year is a really great time to get together with us and reestablish your expectations. So talk to us, what is best way for communicating? If you're not on the portal, on the DDX portal, we want to help you get on it. It'll make your life easier. It'll bring visibility to what we're doing for you. Make the life a little bit more predictable. So again, speaking with the team member, that's the number one thing. So reach out to us. Trish, Marco, someone else on the team will be happy to get on the phone with you. And again, revisit what products are we making for you? What are you interested in? What are your needs? Have your expectations changed? Are you okay now with us raising your vertical slightly, or or modifying a material, for example, due to patient anatomy, so that we don't have to put your cases on hold? So what are the things that we can do that you give us permission to do, so that we can continue to progress with your case without putting it on hold for whatever reason? Again, get to learn our products. We are constantly updating our product offerings. So as we evolve more to digital, you'll see more of that. So just understanding what we do, and so that we can better work together. Uh, Best way to contact. Some of our clinicians prefer email, others prefer text messages. So some want us to speak specifically to a staff member. So just establishing those communication points so that we can efficiently communicate with you and take care of you and your patient. And again, the DDX portal setup, that's extremely important if you're not currently using it. So Trish, I was hoping that you would support me in this one, because I know you're definitely an expert and I'm not on the DDX.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're not familiar with DDX, it is our online portal that allows you to submit your cases and communicate with the lab. So the great thing is, when you're kind of handing off your impressions to us, your scans to us, whatever that may be, this is a great way to first start that kind of digital process. So Whether you're using impressions and putting something in the box to ship to us, or you're sending in your scans, either way, logging in to DDX to create your RX is really the ideal scenario. It's really cool because once you click new case in the program, it allows you to fill out your RX, and it even prompts you with that information that we need. So it'll prompt you saying, what material are you looking for? What's the occlusal theme that you prefer? Any other attributes that may be specific to this case. It lets you know about all of these things so that you are sending us the most information possible so that you're getting the best appliance at delivery. The expectations are set right at the beginning so that we're making sure that we're taking care of you and what your needs are. The cool thing too within DDX is it gives you a nice status bar. So you can see right in real time where your case is in production. You can see when it leaves. There'll be a tracking number on there. There's also notes in the case. So whether you put a note in the case or we put a note in the case, you can communicate back and forth with the lab. So it's a great way to kind of elevate that workflow, incorporate that digital component to submitting your cases. So if you're not already on DDX, it's a great way to just kind of elevate that workflow and make things go a little bit more seamless than maybe they're going currently.
Thank you, Trish. And just a couple things from my perspective is I let's say you submitted your scans through iTerra or whatever your scanning portal is, and for some reason we needed a new bite scan. You can easily upload any scan, really, any document into DDX, into the case itself. So it's an alternative way of sending other files. So something to consider. It could be very, very easy to use. Now, Trish, quick question on the favorites. Once a clinician orders a product, or maybe once or twice, does the system already know that is typically what they order?
It does. Yep. So once you order, if you order a lot of the same devices over and over with the same kind of attributes or preferences on that device, the cool thing is it sets that and it remembers it. So all you have to do essentially is put in that patient's name, select your favorite, and then, whatever that may be. And sometimes it's a couple different devices, and that's fine. And then press submit. So it makes that process super fast for you. Once you submit that same thing a few times, it recognizes it. So it's really cool.
Thank you. Awesome. Awesome. Great. All right. So how do we avoid delays, right? I think none of us like having to wait longer than we need to for anything. I personally, when I go to receive service anywhere, I think the biggest thing I look for is how much of a wait is there. I'm not very patient, and so especially for your patients, and December of last year was as challenging as usual with the the cases of the year, and stuff needs to be done, and it needs to be completed by the end of the year so that the patient's insurance is billed properly, and so we get that. We completely understand, and so these are ways. I'm going to have a few things that we can discuss about how to, minimize the delays, putting cases on hold, anything that may create trouble for you while you're working with us. So, it's about communication mostly. It's mostly communication. So let's talk about that. What do we need for a successful relationship? Well, there are three things. There's a couple, which are the scans, of course, and the bites, and then the what ifs. So what if something doesn't go right? So we'll go over some of that. Alrighty, so I'm not going to talk tremendously about the different types of scans and distortions. This is a very brief conversation about just scan quality and what the bite should look like. I'll have a few slides on it, and then we'll move forward. But from the lab's perspective, what we look for is at least 5 millimeters past the gum line on your scans. 5 millimeters is a good rule of thumb because some patients' teeth might be extremely short for whatever reason, or short clinical crowns, and sometimes depending on the design of the device, we may need to go slightly past the gum line in some areas. So 5 millimeters past the gum line is a really good rule of thumb. We don't use it. We typically don't extend the appliance coverage beyond the gum line, but if we needed it, we have it. If the scan is short of the gum line or right at the gum line, there's always a possibility of the device not fitting well. So 5 millimeters past the gum line. The other thing is, imagine that the patient's missing first and second molars on the left side. When you're scanning, scan as if the patient had teeth there. Um, so if you're missing uppers, first and second molars, scan that edentulous ridge. And when you're looking at the scan from the occlusal view, you want to have a symmetrical scan. The reason for that, it gives us more options and gives us a possibility of making oral devices. For example, a true Herbst or a true dorsal require that area whether there are teeth there or not, or where because of where the components are placed. So scan the area to be safe, and this way we're covered for the different options of devices and appliances. Or in the future, you may want a whole different device or appliance made for your patient. You've got the scan. It's a complete scan. You don't have to worry about rescanning at some point. Now, the other thing is the bite registration. So the majority of our clinicians are already sending us scanned bites. What we can do if you're not scanning bites, we can do a few test cases where we can verify where you ship us your physical bite and we verify that the scanned bite and the physical bite match. But ideally, you don't have to ship anything, right? You take your scan, you scan your bite as well, bite relationship, you upload everything. We receive the case almost immediately, and we can start working on the case right away if we have all we need. So that's the ideal workflow: just scanning, the bite registration or the bite relationship along with the arches. So when I talk about bite registration specifically, I'm saying treatment bite. So whether you're doing a sleep device and you're doing a protrusive bite or whatever type of bite technique you use, that's really what we would like to see. If you're making a TMJ appliance, again, a treatment position bite at the established vertical and AP position you want for your patient. Even for occlusal guards, for the majority of occlusal guards, we see an open bite, which is basically sort of a passive opening. And that's where the clinician is capturing that bite. So, what our goal is to minimize your chair time. So, if you can capture a bite at where you expect the patient to be, then our job is to duplicate that space. Obviously, we can raise verticals on the articulators. We can start with the CO bite with maximum intercuspation and open the vertical for you. But anytime the laboratory or the manufacturer has to do something digitally or physically, there is more of a chance of distortion and you having to adjust and grind, more occlusal interference. There's a more chance of that. So just keep that in mind. If you're able to take a vertical bite for the devices, you're making an interocclusal guard, I strongly recommend making some kind of a vertical bite. It's supposed to save you a lot of time at delivery. So the number one reason we place cases on hold are bite shifts. When you're right before you're scanning, what I strongly recommend is check and see how your patient, in this case, it's a protrusive bite for a sleep device, how they're coming, forward. Are they constantly going to that left side? If they are, then maybe that's where they belong. Maybe that's where you want to start your treatment. So when you take the bite registration and you see that, well, you've also done some kind of range of motion measurement or visual of where they're going, and then you can document. So then what you would do is let the lab know, let the manufacturer know. This patient, shifts to the left 3 millimeters at protrusive. That's my bite. Make the device there. The lab then knows that the issue is when we get a bite like this and there's no communication at all. True function will freeze a case, will place it on hold if it's 2 millimeters or more shifted in one direction or the other. So again, if you didn't communicate, we would stop the case and reach out to you, unless you have preferences. But typically, The ideal thing is clinician knows, clinicians lets the lab know, and then we can just continue to move forward with the case without placing it on hold and delaying it for you. And the other thing to consider with your scan bite is a vertical. So ideally, again, from the technician standpoint, I love the bite on the left, right? Because we have plenty of vertical. Assuming this is a sleep device, we got plenty of vertical to make what we need to make. We could use about just about any material with regards to vertical, so we're good here. It's the challenging bites, the two on the right side, where you want to consider as a clinician what you might want to do. So, patient with a super deep bite, well, we're going to have some challenges. You might want to consider maybe not covering some of the sizable ledges, or just start thinking about from the clinical standpoint what the limitations are, what the material properties are of the device, and then how that will affect the vertical that we have. Another challenging bite is that that steep mandibular plane angle apparently with the wisdom teeth. The posterior teeth are almost in contact. The anterior teeth are about 8 millimeters apart. What do we do? So just again, just understanding what's happening in your patient's mouth, looking in the back, not just in the front, and then with regards to the appliance design, maybe looking at the options for what to do. In cases like this, again, we're happy to discuss with you what we've seen other clinicians do. We're happy to possibly recommend different material options. So there are ways to work with these cases. Of course, if you have plenty of experience, you might know what to do. If you'd like a little bit of feedback from the lab perspective, we're happy to support you. If you like a little bit more clinical guidance, we can lead you in the right direction. So happy to support you there. That's what we do every day. And then when we're talking about scans, we're looking at incomplete or distorted scans. Obviously, the scan on the left, I imagine that the patient's tongue was in the way and we missed that spot. Well, if we're making an upper occlusal guard or something, we don't have a problem. But if we're making a lower arch anything, we might have a challenge, assuming we're covering those molars. So, just being aware, having that awareness, double checking the scans. And that's the nice thing about digital, right? The nice thing about digital is you can double check everything while the patient's in the chair so that you don't have to reschedule them and bring them back and, wasting your chair time and their time. Um, the other thing, again, I mentioned previously on the maxillary scan, if your patient is missing molars on the upper right, extend that scan. Extend the scan over that edentulous ridge. You might need it. Oh, by the way, I forget to mention at any time along the way, if you have any questions, please type them. I think actually Trish did. Any questions, please type them in. Ask Trish. She'll be happy to share with me. So happy to discuss at any time. Okay, and then for the delivery, I strongly recommend if you're not already doing it, request a case one day before your patient's appointment. Um, Open up the case, look at the inside the packaging, make sure you got what you were requesting, number one. Whether it's the device, the proper device, or if your preferences were met, just verify. Verify you got what you expected. A little bit of a quality check there. The other thing is if there are instructions for use, if this is an oral device for treating obstructive sleep apnea, there should be, and this device is new to you, read the instructions for use because it'll tell you about care, it'll tell you about advancing, so it'll give you instructions on proper use of the device so that you can educate your patient. And then the other thing is we typically ship out models with the devices or the appliances. Do a quick fit check. Fit the appliance on the models. It'll give you an understanding or an expectations of approximately how it'll fit in the mouth, where maybe the path of insertion is, if it has a certain type of draw, whether it's easier to remove from this side than the other side. So just, it'll give you a little bit of insight on how the device will fit, and it'll help you with when you're delivering, minimize any surprises. All right, so what is it? What if it doesn't fit, right? What if the device just simply doesn't fit? It's not going in for whatever reason, or it fits super tightly. I mean, it's possible, very possible. So again, the best thing to do is to not send the patient home with an ill-fitting device. Um, Take new impressions or new scans. If there's a bite issue, take a new bite registration. Make note of the specific issue, of course. What is it that's not fit? Don't just say it's not fitting, but say, hey, it's not fitting, or it's too tight on the right side, or it's rocking. But be as specific as possible, because that'll help the lab to really try and get to the bottom of the issue, get to that root cause. Of course, communicate with your lab, coordinate any reworks or remakes, and then send everything back. Send the original models back, send the appliance that's not fitting, and then the new records. Um, with regards to why we ask for this, is one is FDA, especially when on the oral device side. FDA is very specific in terms of how we're supposed to investigate as a manufacturer, um, the root causes of these challenges. If we don't have the records, we don't have the proper information. We it's very difficult to come to a solution, a resolution, and a root cause. So it's extremely important to get everything back. It's a huge inconvenience to you and your patient, and we expect this not to be an issue. But if it is, it'll help us do it right. Imagine you saying, "Hey, this isn't fitting. Just make me a new one. You've got the scans. Don't mess it up this time." What if the lab makes it? What if we do make it and it fits exactly the same way because we have exactly the same records? Now you're double unhappy, right? So that's what we're hoping to avoid. We want to minimize the disruption to your practice, for your patient, but we having getting the right information will help us to correct things properly. So let's talk a little bit about the benefits of a digital workflow. Here's there's a few things, of course. We got increased efficiency. So we talked about how you can load up a case into a DDX portal, and you can kind of track things along, and you can see how the case is progressing, and you can see all the records. You can load documents into it. You can also type in instructions. It'll save your preferences. So there's a lot of really good things of having digital as your workflow. It helps to reduce errors as well, right? So um, written prescription, we may forget to write something in, or maybe a technician might forget to read a certain component of your prescription. When it's entered through the portal, the instructions are extremely clear. So we get what's called a work ticket that's very, very specific about what's to be done. And then you'll get with regards to digital workflow, we simply have reduced holds. Why? Because if you're scanning, we can see the distortion right away. You're probably going to correct it right away, as opposed to with an impression, a traditional impression. So with regards to scanning, we're seeing less and less um, distortion issues. Uh, People, systems are getting really great at doing intraoral scans, and we're having a lot more success with how things are fitting and with remakes. And we'll talk a little bit about the benefits of digital devices. There's a ton of them, right? There's a few to talk about. We have a milled and a 3D printed appliance on the screen. We can talk about what's so great about digital. There's a lot. So let me start. One is reproducibility. If doggy gets to the device, and we've seen this happen, uh, we can reproduce it. We can make a new one exactly the same way. Um, so there's definitely a huge benefit to having a digital device made, and it's going to fit pretty much the same way as the first one was. This happens once in a while. Sometimes I'll tell you, UPS does an excellent job. We ship most of our stuff to them. They do an excellent job of delivering the packages, but especially around holiday time, you can imagine how overwhelmed they get, and stuff happens. So if it happens again, and we have a digital file of the appliance, we can immediately start working. We can track, we can see, yep, it was lost. Yeah, it's like in limbo somewhere in a warehouse or wherever. And if for some reason they can't get it to you in a timely manner, we're already working on the device, on the remake. We're printing new models, we're making a new device, and we can get it over to you. And then, we look at overall quality of the appliance when it's digital. Um, I've had this question asked several times over my career. Did you get a new technician? In fact, do you have a new technician working there? It could be good or bad, right? It could be like, man, what's going on over there? Or it could be, hey, whoever worked on this case, I want them to keep working on this case. And that's a tricky part about doing things manually. It's very hard to have a consistent, outcome. So with digital, we have some of those variables are very controllable. We can tell the system, hey, I want this much retention. Hey, I want this kind of fit. I want a 1.5 millimeter thickness. I can tell the system to do that. Also, of course, we have a design history. We can go back and review, the design of that appliance with hand making appliances. I'd like to think I'm a pretty good technician. I don't believe I can make the same appliance twice, exactly the same way or even close. So digital definitely helps to give us more consistency in what we do. And again, I talked a little bit about overall thickness and how as a technician, I can't duplicate what I did twice. It's virtually impossible. I was at a class again a few years ago, and the instructor was telling us about signatures. He said, "Hey, everyone, sign your name on a piece of paper. Everybody show your name. Everybody's name is unique. Everybody has a unique signature." So he said, it's the same thing when you're making a crown or you're making a denture. Um, all of us have a very unique way of doing what we do. You can tell what your work looks like as opposed to the other person's. And so with digital allows us to make a more consistent product consistently, consistent product consistently. Symmetry, again, surface thickness, retention, all those things. Digital really helps for it to be more, again, more predictable. So I'm going to talk a little bit about digital materials, and mostly I'll be talking about milled because that's mostly what we do here. We do a tiny bit of 3D printing, and there are reasons why we, for now, are staying away from it for the most part. So we'll talk about milled and why we love milled so much here. Um, the biggest thing is we get to use proven materials. We're working with PMMA, which is, of course, acrylic. It's processed acrylic. Um, we have multiple choices of materials like acetyl resin and other thermoplastics that have already been used in dentistry. They're just, made in a block now where we can carve them out with a machine. Uh, Again, with milled appliances, most of our, I'd say all of our appliances are extremely smooth and highly polished. So the surface is again, a lot easier to clean, less chances for bacteria to accumulate on the surface of those appliances. I think about nylon, for example, or other 3D printed materials like cured resins, where you have that surface texture, and so they're a little bit harder to keep clean. Of course, again, biocompatibility of the materials. If you ever have a patient that has a chemical sensitivity, number one, we do have what we call little allergy kits where you can request and we can send it to you so you can test them out for your patient if you're comfortable with that. Acetyl resin, which is one of my favorite materials. We haven't found, and we're not looking for it, but we haven't found a patient that's allergic to it yet. So that's a wonderful material to use for your chemically sensitive patients. And again, these materials are predictable because they're proven. We've used them for many, many years. They've been used before we were milling them. So all of this stuff I'd used in the past. Great. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit more about the milled PMMA and get the pros of that. It's clear, stain resistant, it's strong. It's probably, I think Dr. Patel can probably chime in on this, but it's probably twice as strong as traditional acrylic. We haven't tested it, but we're getting remote reports of it having excellent wear resistance. And of course, it doesn't discolor as much as traditional acrylic because it's not as porous as traditional, poured acrylic or salt and peppered acrylic. Uh, for those reasons, we can make it thinner, so it allows for more tongue space. Again, extremely smooth surfaces. And the upside, again, it is acrylic, so it could be relined and repaired. Downsides, much like acrylic, it is rigid and it can break. So why would you use PMMA or where would you use PMMA? We use it a lot for, you know, um, periodontal stabilization or orthodontic stabilization. So some of our clinicians will have a retainer made on one arch and an occlusal guard with PMMA on the other arch. Um, so it works really well for that, again, because of its rigidity. Daytime TMJ splints. A lot of our clinicians have patients wear orthotics where they're going to function with these things. They're going to eat, they're going to chew. So you need something that's rigid that will hold up very well. We make a tremendous amount of stabilization splints with this material. Of course, our true dorsal and true herps. This is one of the materials we use to make those. And again, occlusal guards, different designs of occlusal guards. So for patients, this feels secure. It's a solid material. Milled acetal, uh, extremely resilient, fracture resistant, very, very strong. Now, this stuff is amazingly thin. So our acetal appliances typically, I think, are about 1.2 millimeter thick. And, sometimes on the occlusal surface, if needed, you can design those about a half millimeter. I mean, this material is not going to fracture. A patient could possibly wear a hole in it, but even then, wear resistance is tremendous, and it's highly polishable. So unlike nylon, again, it doesn't have that texture, those porous surfaces. So it's extremely smooth. It's a solid material, less chances of bacteria sticking to it. Downside is we cannot do an internal reline. We can't reline it with acrylic or other materials. And we cannot adapt it to a new restoration. So if a patient got a bridge or something like that, there's going to be a very good chance that it won't fit anymore. Why? Why would we use it? Well, nighttime TMJ splints. You got a heavy bruxer, or if you got a patient that might be sensitive to different chemicals, this could possibly be a really, really good material to use. We do use it for our true dorsal acetal. Um, if you have a very tight vertical, I mentioned that anterior open bite case where, I mean, the posterior teeth are virtually in contact. Well, in cases like that, this would be a great material to use. Limited tongue space, right? You got patients with large tongues. Man, this material is so thin; it's only a millimeter thick. I mean, that's about it. So it doesn't take up a whole lot of space. And we've heard patients report that it feels like it's hugging their teeth. Milled thermoplastic. So it does look and act a lot like the PMMA, the milled acrylic. The difference is it slightly has a little bit more flexibility to it. And when you place it in hot water, it will soften up, which is nice for delivery and for seating. Again, it will bond to acrylic if you needed to reline the occlusal surface. Um, and the downside is it's not quite as strong. and wear resistant as the milled, the PMMA. But we still see a lot of these, a lot of occlusal guards with these, and I we don't get a whole lot of remakes, after a few years. So I think they hold up a lot better than the traditional acrylics. So why would we use it? Well, it does have a little flex to it. So it may be hard for you to tell from this image, but this is our thermoplastic compact day. So we used to make our compact day with a little wire that was flexible, so that basically you only have the occlusal, the occlusal coverage or molar coverage on each side, and so this would allow for a tremendous amount of tongue space. Well, again, we're getting away from the manual processes, so the thermoplastic compact allows for a very thin apron of acrylic just on the lingual. So you still get the flexibility, you still get the tongue space, and you get no metal. So it's a really big plus. Um, we do a lot of day guards with it. We do a lot of occlusal splints, some TMJ splints as well. So milled ethylene propylene. This stuff is unique to our the EMA milled. This is great stuff. It has the properties similar to acetyl, but it's a little bit softer. It's very, very smooth. It's very highly polished, and it has a little flex. What I'm seeing here is if you've ever heard of where EMAs, the buttons pop off and stuff like that, we haven't seen one of these break at all. So we've been making these for about a year and a half now, and they're holding up excellently. Our clinicians that use them love them. So this is a really, really great material. Again, it's exclusive to the EMA, milled EMA. Downside is similar to acetyl. You cannot reline it and you cannot modify it to new restorations. You can grind on it. Alrighty, so we'll talk a little bit about what's new for 2025. We are our R&D department has been working super hard at just digitizing everything that we do, and there's a lot of benefits to digital production. One of them is, again, to make things more I was going to say more difficult for you, but that wouldn't be correct. Uh, to make your life just smoother and easier, and more predictable. So we will be introducing soon the Mill True Comfort. Uh, Again, the milled appliances, we're going to start adding ball pass to some of those. And then we got a whole new sleep devices coming, maybe two, maybe two. I'm super excited about what's coming. So again, we're going from, thermoforming and then layering acrylic on top of the thermoform trays and then grinding all of that out. Going from that manual process of doing what we do to doing a digital design, sending it out to the milling unit, having this precision, beautiful, symmetrical appliance, and then placing the soft liner inside. So that's where we're going. And that's coming really, really soon. So why would we? Why would we do that? Well, number one, it's going to be stronger than our current True Comfort. It's going to be a little bit more rigid as well, which is a good thing. And what we've seen with, you may have seen as well with the dual laminates and triple laminates, after a certain amount of time, they start to kind of become loose. So making basically a milled exoskeleton will retain, that rigidity and maintain the retention better. Again, the other thing is the symmetry, the uniform design of this thing. I mean, it's made specifically to that patient. It's made specific certain amount of thickness, and so it's going to fit more naturally in your patient's mouth. It's really hard for a technician to achieve that with their hands. And again, typical uses for this stuff, occlusal guards, post-restorative work. Let's just say your patient got veneers done. So you want to put something a little softer in their mouth, if that's your treatment philosophy, then a Middle True Comfort would probably be the best choice. Of course, we'll also be using it for nighttime TMJ splints and our sleep devices. So our True Herps and our True Dorsal will have this material. And I personally tried this stuff. It's amazing. It's like having pills over your teeth. I mean, it's just super nice. I love it. And ball clasps. So again, the images on the left are traditional acrylic. So this is a salt and pepper built up acrylic. So we, do our block out by hand, of course, our bending our clasps, acrylic buildup, process that, and then grind everything down and create a big old dust cloud of acrylic. And so now what we're doing is we're digitally designing, sending out to the milling machine. Once those are out, adding the ball clasp at the end. So not only is it a cleaner, healthier environment for our technicians, which is extremely important to me, but also you have a better device. You get a lot better appliance. And so why? Why is it better? Well, it's stronger because we're using the solid PMMA disc as opposed to doing a salt and pepper buildup technique. Less porous for the same reason, so less chance of yellowing and discoloring. It's thinner for the same reasons because it's stronger, and then it's very symmetrical. It's very symmetrical and it's uniform thickness. And again, so if you wanted to talk a little bit more about choosing digital materials and why they would be beneficial to your patient, we're happy to help you. But it's understanding what the lab or manufacturer offers. What you're familiar with, what the product offering what's your patient's anatomy. Do they have a lot of undercuts? Do they have short clinical crowns? Do they have a very tight vertical? What is their situation? Because that also will help with material choice and, of course, appliance choice. I'm going to skip the questions for now. All right. So again, 2025, we've been extremely busy. We've got a couple of new oral devices on the pipeline. One specific one that's extremely unique that I'm super excited about should be here by the end of the year. It's quite a process because it's a medical device, so there's quite a process to get it to market, but we want to do things the right way. Of course, upgrades to our current devices. We're doing some updating and upgrading to devices. So please, get on our social media platforms, share your email with us so we can share updates with you and with what's coming. Extremely excited for 2025. You'll continue to see our digital evolution, and we're happy to work with you, and we're really blessed to be here with you. And from my end, that's it. Thank you all. My email is there in case there's any questions I can answer for you, any way I can support you. And Trish, I'll hand that off to you.
Excellent. Thank you. As I'm finishing up here, if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand or put them in the question and answer box, and we'll get those addressed here shortly. We're really excited for 2025. It's going to be a really exciting year for us here at True Function. So if you are not currently a client and want to kind of follow along, feel free to fill out our new account form. We'd love to help you through that process with your patients and kind of pick that right appliance and help troubleshoot so that you're having the best experience with your lab possible. So that is that QR code on the left. On the right is our webinar list. So feel free to join us for our next webinar. That one's going to be February 26th. The topic is mastering the new patient visits, the essential tips for sleep professionals, and that's going to be with Dr. Jody Seville. So really excited. That's really going to focus on that new patient visit and really working side by side with those patients to help get their needs met, and help them through that whole process. So if you scan that QR code, you can join us for February. And as always, if you can't attend live, go ahead and still register, and we will send you the recording. Frank, if you wouldn't mind going to the next tab for me. We are running a really great special through the end of February. So if you would like to try out one of our milled morning aligners with your next sleep case, go ahead and order one of those and use that code milled aligner 50 on your RX or in the coupon code section of DDX. It'll take 50% off that milled morning aligner. So great time if you haven't already to try our milled morning aligner and help you recapture that position, that patient's position in the morning. So we're excited to have you try that out. That is in that milled PMMA material that Frank was talking about earlier. If you do have any topics, like I had mentioned earlier, that you'd like us to discuss, any following questions from the webinar today, feel free to put those again in that question and answer box or raise your hand. We'd love to open it up for a discussion here, and hopefully we'll see you in February too.
So next time,
Mayor, Claudia, anyone?
Oh, thank you guys. Appreciate it. This is wonderful, Frank. Loved it. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you for
insight.
joining. Thank you, Dr. Patel. We appreciate you. So next time on Stone Trish, we'll be talking about specific splints designs and you know, different materials that can be used with them. So be a little bit more technical next time. It'll be fun.
Nice.
Yes, we have some really exciting webinars planned for 2025, including one with Dr. Patel.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you everyone for joining us this evening. Hopefully we'll see you again in February. Don't hesitate to reach out to Frank or I. My email is Trisha@TrueFunction, just like Frank at TrueFunction. So if we can support you at all in any way, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Even post the webinar, and we're excited to help you out through 2025 and beyond.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining us.